We should do something on positivity. I mean, not now necessarily.
This will probably be on positivity.
Yeah?
Just watch.
I need some positivity at the moment.
All right, it's a sikha from. Where are you going? Are we going?
Yeah, we're recording.
All right. So this is a sikha on the weekly parsha. Just picked one off the shelf there. It says like this: Al pasek yatek misham yachpor be'er acheres v'luravu aleha mi'ikru shemar rechovos v'yomer ki at archiv Hashem lanu ufarim ba'aretz. So this is after Yitzchak. You're familiar with the patriarchs and the whole thing? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the story?
I know Abraham and a little bit of Isaac. I don't know too much of Yaakov.
Okay, so basically, by the time
The
Abraham,
12 tribes of
right, they come after Yaakov, right, they're Yaakov's children. So at the time of that Abraham passed away, Yitzchak sort of took over the dynasty, and he also, just like his father before him, he got into some quarrels with the shepherds of Avimelech, who was the king of that area of Israel at the time. And they were, every time Yitzchak would dig a well, they were filling it in and saying it was theirs. So they were, I guess the well was like the currency at that time. You know, wells in the desert is a big thing. So it says that Yitzchak, he uprooted his tent from there and he dug another well. And he did it like 3 times, and every time they would come and claim it was theirs. Basically anti-Semitism. And finally he built a well, and they didn't argue about it. And he came and he called the well Rechovot. It's the name of the well, which means broad. And he said, why did he call it that? Because now Hashem has broadened us and we can be fruitful in the land. He named it on the basically after the idea of being left alone. Matig Rashi brings down Farinu ba'aretz Mefarish Ketargumo B'nifush Ba'ara. And Rashi just brings down what the Targum says. B'nifush Ba'ara, but it means will be fruitful in the land. We'll see what the whole thing is going to be about those words though. Kasra Mefarshim, the sages write, the commentaries write, that what does Rashi mean? Seemingly Ufarinu Hu Lashon Avar. That the word we will be fruitful in the land doesn't really mean we will be fruitful in the land. It means we were fruitful in the land. It's a past tense. And since he's saying Ki ata archiv Hashem, since at the same sentence he's saying now Hashem has broadened our boundary, how can he then say and we were fruitful in the land? Like the sentence doesn't make sense. You follow me there?
Meaning only now we're fruitful.
Alright, in other words, Yitzchak says now, why didn't he name it Rehovot? Because now we can be fruitful, right? With the new well. But then he says, "Ufarinu ba'aretz." We were fruitful in the land. So, therefore, Rashi brings down the Targum, the Aramaic translation, meaning to say that I guess it's going to switch it. Therefore, he writes the Targum, which means "Ufarinu kan nifush ba'atid." So, nifush, which is the Aramaic translation, it means in the future. Yeah, even though farinu usually means we would be fruitful in the past, Rashi says that here it means something different. He changes the tense of it, and it means we will be fruitful. So far, so good? Basically, we're getting into some minutiae of the language in the Torah.
Is this a continuation?
No.
Something different?
Yeah. About Pashtus, Eyev Shalom Rakim. But the Rabbi says, really, we can't say this. Matzinu b'Torah Pa'amim Hachi Rabos, because we find in the Torah a lot of times, Tevos b'Lashon Avar, V'Avav Sheberoshan, Mahavchan La'asi. That many times we find a word that's in the past tense, but if you place a Vav in front of it, it switches the past tense to the future tense. Ve'im came pashu gam benidu didan. That farinu bevav who nipare ba'asit. In other words, that here also the word we were fruitful, because it has a vav in front of it, it also flips into the future. It automatically means that we will be fruitful in the future, and therefore there's no question, and there's no reason for Rashi to come and explain this in a special way and bring the Aramaic as though it's something different from all the other places in the Torah. In other words, all those who try and explain why Rashi brought this down, there's really no reason for them to explain it because it doesn't make sense even why Rashi brought it down. Normally, Rashi doesn't have to say anything in a situation like this because it already gets flipped to the future. Gam tzrich bior. We also have to understand Rashi mefarish tevas ufarinu v'lo tevas ba'aretz. Ki ba'ara hamutak b'Rashi eino mosaf bior b'tevas ba'aretz im kin lam mati gam tevas ba'aretz. The second question is, and it's all predicated on the fact that the commentary of Rashi is so exact that you have to dig into every single word that he mentions because it's just assumed that everything is said with divine spirit, and therefore it's worthy of such scrutiny. So the question now he's asking is, why does Rashi bring down the two words nifush ba'ara as an explanation of ufarinu ba'aretz? Even if you want to say that nifush is giving some kind of an explanation to farinu, but ba'aretz, just translating into Aramaic as ara, seemingly adds nothing. So why does he have to bring down that extra word nifush ba'ara? He could have just said nifush.
These words are very strange and using. I do not understand that.
Ari, you following along here?
Yeah.
He understands them. How you doing?
I'm hoping the words will also
I've
be
never heard
translated.
Nifush before.
Alright, but you following Yom Tov or no?
A little, yeah. Keep going.
Okay, but Abir Bazeh, so to explain the matter, Ufarinu hu melashin Peria, Uperish Akasuv hu vanase Peru. So what does it mean, Ufarinu? It means from the word to make fruits. And the verse is saying that nase perus. It's basically saying we will make fruits. The bnei Adam shehem yasu perus. Since it's talking about we will make fruits, it's talking about man. They will make fruits. Therefore, it means we will make fruits called children. Al Darech Mashakasu Peru Ravu, like it says elsewhere regarding this fruit, that being fruitful means to have children. However, on the other hand, our situation is not exactly compared to their Peru Ravu, where it says we'll be fruitful and multiply. On the pasuk Peru Ravu, Rashi explains, Imlo Amar Ela Peru. So the classic commandment basically to Adam and to the animals, Peru Ravu, which means be fruitful and multiply, is the commandment to have children from God. Rashi there brings, if it would have just said be fruitful and it wouldn't say and multiply, just the word be fruitful, then we would have come to understand that the commandment was that one species would have not species, but one creature would give birth to another one and not more. Comes the word Peru Ravu, and it comes to tell you that one can have many children. If Hashem would have just given the commandment Peru, it would have been you just only have one child. Peru Ravu, this is Rashi in the Chumash, means you have one can have many.
The word fruitful. Like
Fruitful.
Mate. Why not something a little bit more specific?
It's pretty specific. Make fruits. Fruits of man
Is there like
is
a
their offspring, just
is
like
there like a
fruits of
ha-
a tree.
is there like a Halloween that we're thinking about actually like fruits?
I don't think so, not at this point.
Meaning like we made a well, now we can make trees, now we can make fruit. No,
Could be, but not right now. As far as the Rebbe is concerned, he's talking about children.
Maybe that would make more sense why you need the two words.
No, but the two words goes on a different place when it's clearly talking to
So it's clearly fruitful.
animals and man to have
Children.
children. Yeah,
If it just said be fruitful, then they literally would have made like one child. Perhaps.
yeah. One would have made one and not more. So when Hashem gives the command Revu, He basically gives the power that one can have many from the power of God. Kolomar shegam al vlad echad matim al lashon Peru, which means that even on one child you can still use the language Peru. But in our situation, she says ufarinu ba mehemshech lebekiata archiv Hashem lanu. When it says farinu in our verse, which we're talking about, it says we will be fruitful. when it's coming as a continuation of Hashem broadened us because of the well, right? Because Harchiv lanu Hashem lanu, Hashem made us broad because they didn't come and contest the well. And then it says Ufaridim ba'aretz. Ein mistaber klal ki hakavani hi she'echad mulin echad v'lo yosef. We can't say that one would give birth to one and not more. Hainu shelo haya akar ki ze harchiv klal. Ein ze harchiv klal. In other words, it can't just be that the meaning is one will have one, i.e., what is it saying that you won't be barren, you'll have at least one. Why can't it mean here in our verse what it means over there? Because our verse, it comes in as a follow-up of what it says, Hashem is going to make us broad and spacious. And being broad and spacious, it shouldn't be followed, and you won't be barren. You only have one child. It's obviously like a language of multiplicity and greatness. So, what he's trying to say is that our word, ufarinu, Peru, doesn't seem like what it means over there. Because there, Peru means one, and he has to add a second word, Peru Ravu, to make it mean many. Here, Peru, if Peru just means one, it doesn't go with the beginning of the verse, which says Hashem is going to make us broad and spacious. Follow? Wamela muvan she'ufarinu kan hu bedugma masha kasuv lo argashenu mipanecha b'shana achas pentia aretz shamema ma'at argashenu mipanecha ad asher tipare. So he says, therefore, our word ufarinu must be compared to a different place in the Chumash when this word appears, where it says, quote, I will not force the enemy out before you all at once, lest the land become barren. Rather, little by little, I will force your enemy out, ad asher tipare, until you multiply. Sheperish tipare, hu shiyu ba'aretz harbe b'nei adam. What does it mean? Tifra, maybe? I don't know, but he says, what does the word mean? It means, clearly there, it means multiple amounts of people. So the same word, elsewhere in the Chumash, doesn't mean just have one. It means clearly there, it means multiple amounts of people, because just having one is not going to fill the land and make it not desolate. And so he says the same thing here then. Ufarinu here means that one person can have birth to many. Let me just make sure everyone's on the train here. You following this?
So what do you need the ervu for? That's the question.
No. Over there,
because if peri can be many,
right.
The question now, because we thought we needed the ervu to make it many, and now we found another verse that it says, so why do you need the ervu?
I hear what you're saying there. I think he's saying it's going on context. Over there, when he's saying you should give birth, and he says give fruits. How do you know what that means? It means okay, make more of yourself. Be fruitful means make fruit, but if it didn't, but not necessarily make fruits, right? But in both these other contexts, it's clear that it can't be one from the language itself.
I think it's like a bracha.
You understand why it's clear? Because in other words, you're going to empty out the land. It's not going to help you if you have one extra child.
Right.
And same here. It's not reasonable to say, go be fruitful, and after I told you I'm going to widen your boundary, to say you're not going to be barren, you'll have one. And so far I think that's what he's saying, but I hear what you're saying also, yeah.
Could multiply also mean that you have multiple children through your grandchildren? So
it could, but
like
that's
you
why...
have 2 or 3 children, and then like they have children, and they have children, they have children. You've multiplied yourself infinitely many times.
It could, but I'm saying the first time you have one or you have many. Like before you get to the grandchildren, the father has one or many. So that itself has to be determined in the Torah. Hashem is granting the power of rebirth to the creatures. And he says, Peru, you should clone yourself, basically, have children. So you're thinking maybe one only. Until he tells you that one can have many, then it would only be one. Now when it comes to the grandchildren also, they also have the same commandment. From forevermore, we have the same commandment. Yeah. So the grandchildren also have the commandment to make many out of themselves. So I don't think it goes necessarily on. It could. I mean, there is something to what you're saying, because it says that a person does not fulfill the commandment of having children, according to one opinion, unless he has a son and a daughter, and the son and the daughter each themselves have a son and a daughter. And that's actually how you fulfill the commandment.
Wow.
So there is something to what you're saying for sure, but here we're just looking sort of grammatically. Can this word mean many? Even though in its original context it specifically looks like it means one, and I have to add an extra word for it to mean many. Where both in these two other contexts, it seems like the word itself means many. So he says, therefore, I'm going to hang my explanation in our verse on a place where it talks about clearing out the land, so it doesn't become desolate, and there for sure the same root of the word means many. It doesn't make any sense if it means one. About al pizeh kasha b'yosef, he says, if you're going to say this, you have an even more difficult question. Yaakov ve'Esav ve'ech nofa al zeh lashon ufarinu. So now we bring the whole thing on its face. At the end of the day, they didn't have too many children. They only had one set of twins. So his blessing that you should be fruitful, which seems like this great thing, which comes after the words, Hashem is going to increase your boundary and broaden you and spacious, make you spacious. At the end of the day, they only had 2 kids. So was the blessing not fulfilled? Because he said, Ufarinu ba'aretz, now we're going to be multiplied. And they weren't 2 multiplied, they only had 2 kids. And therefore Rashi comes and says, the ain kavanas ufarinu levlados kamo peru ravu kim v'nifush. But therefore the Rabbi wants to say that the word here ufarinu doesn't even go on children. It doesn't go on children, like peru ravu. But rather nifush, what does it mean? Rashi Perush Tevazu al Pasik. Rashi already explained this word nipush in a different verse, where it says Shem Echad Pishon. One of the names of the 4 rivers that came out of the Garden of Eden was called Pishon. Same word, nipush, comes from the same root. And Rashi over there says Al Shem Shemeimav Mizbarchim Ba'olim Mashkin Haaretz Nikra Pishun, because its waters are blessed and are rising and feeding the whole earth. It's called Pishun. Kamo upashu parashav. Hainu shdavar zeh atzma misraber misgadel. Pashu parashav, I guess, means like the soldiers increase. In other words, what it means is there's an implicit increase in the waters themselves. Davar zeh atzma misraber misgadel. Not that it has fruits, it gives fruits, but the thing itself gets bigger and grows. That's what it means. Why was it called Pishon? Because its own waters are just blessed and they just produce more and more of them. Not that they're having children, not that there's something else is coming off of them, but the original one is growing. That's why Rashi brings this word down to explain that even though the word is ufarinu, which usually means to give birth, here it doesn't mean give birth. It means that the actual original gets bigger. You following?
How? I mean,
because he brings that from...
No, I'm just saying by the river. What does that mean that... Like, it's a body of water that's a body of water.
It just keeps on multiplying. In other words, it's...
The water itself?
The water itself, it
like,
says... Oli mashkin sa'aretz, yeah. Meimav mizbaruchim. Its waters are blessed. Which means it's just like a never-ending wellspring type of thing.
How do you explain that? Like,
I would say a never-ending wellspring.
And it doesn't come from anywhere, it's just...
Well, it comes from wherever it comes from. But in other words, it's not... Some things have a limit, you know? They run out. This just gets bigger and bigger, and that's the word. So therefore, Rashi brings down this word nipush, which is a very specific type of growth. It's not a growth of a child; it's the growth of a self.
Is it related to nefesh?
It's a similar word, obviously. Yeah, it's the same letters, but yeah. Al derech zekan kavana sheyitzchak ba'atzmo yeberibo v'gadlo. So what does it mean here? When he says now we have Hashem will broaden our boundary, ufarinu ba'aretz will become fruitful. What does it mean? Not that he'll give birth, but that Yitzchak himself will become greater and bigger, greater and bigger. It says vayigdal ha'ish vayelech haloch v'gadol ad ki gadal ma'or, and that's what the verse goes on to say, that the man grew and went on growing until he became awesomely great. V'lo mikne tzon mikne bakar. Abuda Rabba, and it says he had an unbelievable amount of stuff, basically. Rabba. It was huge, so it goes on himself. However, Al Pizel Maviu Rashi B'Shem Targum, having the Lefarish came Ba'atm Mitzar Hechrech Hanal B'Pshat HaKasu. So the question now, okay, we're comfortable with this, but then the question goes on Rashi, why did he bring it in the name of the Aramaic translation. If you remember, Rashi comes down and he says, this is like the Targum says, like it's translated in Aramaic. And the question is, if there's already a previous place in the Torah with the word Pishon, which is a river called Pishon, where the name of the in the Pshat means to get bigger on your own, why does Rashi have to go relying on the Targum Onkelos translation in Aramaic when he could have just said, this is the Pshat of the word, this is the simple meaning of the word? Why is he looking for some place to hang it? Yeah?
Must be different.
That's it. Tamal Zeh, the reason is, let me just make sure everyone understands that question. Rashi, he doesn't need to bring how, when he brings the Targum, what's he really saying? Targum is the Aramaic translation. He's saying that this was translated thousands of years ago into Aramaic by this special Jew called Onkelos, right? And so the idea is that when there's a word which you don't understand the context of it, because it doesn't have any predecessor in the rest of the verses that came before. In other words, it's a new meaning which is not found in the simple language of the Torah that preceded it. Then he's going to rely on some foreign, Targum Onkelos. Sometimes he translates things which are not. They don't look like the pshat. They don't look like the simple meaning. He brings things, basically he's telling you what's not clear in the text and what the words might not simply mean, he'll bring from outside. So to rely on him means that it's unclear what this word means without him. And yet, if already previously in the Chumash we already have a clear meaning of this word, then why does it have to be brought from the Targum? Okay, that's basically what I understand from that. The Tamal Zeh, the reason for it is like this. Barov makom kasu b'Torah lashon paru v'kiyotzi bazeh. Because most of the places in the Torah where it says the word paru, to be fruitful, mefarash hatargum pushu v'kiyotzi bazeh. The Targum brings the word pushu, Hainu sheladas Targum, which means according to the understanding of the translator, the Targum of the Aramaic, gam kisha'ari havladas vlados asiyas peros yesh b'zeh gam atochen shel pishon. That even when you're talking about making children, which means not yourself becoming bigger, but making fruits outside of you, it also has the same content of the word pishon. In other words, it means to become bigger yourself. Because when you give birth, the birth giver also becomes bigger himself. So the Targum equates these two things. That giving birth and yourself getting bigger are the same. Therefore we see that according to the language of the understanding of the Targum, the translation of the translator of Aramaic, when the meaning of ufarinu, which means this verse that we're dealing with, it's only yourself increasing and not the idea of having children. It doesn't go out of the meaning of that same word in other places. Because everywhere you have it, this meaning is also included in that word. So let me explain in different words. In other words, since when it comes to the Targum, both giving birth and yourself getting bigger, both mean yourself getting bigger. Right? Because when you give birth, it's also called yourself getting bigger. So therefore, when the Targum wants to bring down the Indian of only yourself getting bigger, not having to do with giving birth, he can use the same word. Why? Because even when he uses it in the context of giving birth, it also means yourself getting bigger. You understand this? Should I say that one more time?
Sure.
I don't understand. No, I don't understand because I would think being bigger would be Yigdal. Right.
No, but we're saying how the Targum translates.
Is a different connotation.
No, there's many words for getting bigger. There's probably a dozen words for getting bigger.
through his children.
Right. All I'm saying is the word nafish, right? This idea of nipush or nafish, when it's brought in the Aramaic translation, he uses it in two different contexts. He uses it in the context of having children, and he also uses it here in our context of getting bigger. Why? Because even when he uses it in the context of having children, what he really means is that you get bigger yourself. Because when you have children, you get bigger. So therefore, since even when it says you have children, it really means you're going to get bigger. He doesn't hold himself back from using it, even when it means you don't have children. Just you get bigger. Because even when you do have children and he uses it, he's using it because you get bigger. You follow that? So that's what he's saying. So therefore, he doesn't hold himself back here from using it, even though it doesn't mean you have children. Because even when it does mean you have children, the point is that you're getting bigger.
Could you just remind me the original pasuk because I missed it? What's the original?
Yeah, ufarinu ba'aretz. Talking about how Yitzchak, when he finally found the final well, he says Hashem expanded our boundary, and now ufarinu ba'aretz, we can become multiple in the land. Yeah.
Does it ever talk about people getting smaller?
It could talk about people getting smaller.
What does that mean?
When you have children, they go to college, your money goes, whatever, you get smaller.
Or like, yeah, the child that also gets...
Yeah, it could be such a thing. Yeah.
What's the name of this part, this line you're doing?
It's a sicha from Toldos, from
Okay.
Lukutei Sichas, Chelik Yud. Yeah, just grabbed one off the shelf. It's a little bit,
Is there a reason we
logical.
didn't continue on that turn today?
Because everyone's not here.
Okay.
L'chein Matzayin Rashi la Targum. Therefore, Rashi indicates over to the Targum. In other words, why does he say it in the name of the translator? That was our question before. This is the reason why. Lamdeinu she'ein perush zeh v'nipush besug v'lo matzati lo chaver ki b'chol makomos yesh bo tochen zeh. He wants to say, it comes to teach us that it comes to teach us the ein perush zeh, that this word v'nipush, right, which means to get bigger, is not in the category which Rashi often brings down different places. Lo matzasi lo chaver. In other words, sometimes Rashi says this is a unique word that I didn't find any adjoining word in the Torah that has this exact translation. Sometimes you'll find Rashi brings a word, he says this is like a one of a kind. It doesn't have a friend in the Torah that you can rely on. Here he brings the Targum in order to indicate that our word ufarinu is not such a word like that. It's not like that. Because all places that you find the word ufarinu, it has the same meaning. Understand? We at this point we're under the impression that ufarinu here is like unique. Because everywhere you find ufarinu, it means to multiply, to have others. And here the word means just to get bigger yourself. So Rashi could have said there's no precedent for a word like this. He could have. But rather he brings down in the name of the Targum to explain on the contrary. Every time someone has children, what it really means is you get bigger yourself. And therefore here, even though it doesn't talk about having children, it means you get bigger yourself. It's not new, because that's anyway what it means to have children, is to get bigger yourself. So he brings down in the name of the Targum to show that this is not some unusual usage of this word. This is in fact always what the word means, because having children means you get bigger yourself. I'm following along myself, but I'm not sure if I've got the crowd with me here. You with me?
Well, you're saying basically the lesson is you have an extra word that explains that you're not having children, you're also getting bigger through your children. The question is, why does it say that? I'm just thinking to myself that
Did you hear this last thing that we said, or you were outside?
I think I heard it.
Okay, in other words, what does it mean? Rashi says, why does Rashi bring the Targum? Why does Rashi bring this in the name of the Targum? That's the question the Rabbi just answered.
He has already, you're saying. I mean, it's already says it in a different place.
We said before that the word pishon already means to increase yourself. So Rashi could have just said here, this word means to increase yourself. Why does he bring in the name of the Targum?
Targum is
The Aramaic translation.
Bigger. You said bigger, not duplicate. You said bigger, makes you bigger.
Yeah, the Targum but the point is, he brings the word nipush, which means to bigger. But why does he bring this in the name of the Targum? Why does he have to bring the Aramaic translator into the picture? So Rabbi said, because he's trying to say that even though you're seeing right here a word which is unusual and it doesn't usually mean this, right? Usually ufarinu means to give birth. The reality is that everywhere where it says to give birth, the Targum translated as nipush, which means to get bigger. Because really giving birth means to get bigger. And therefore it's not an unusual usage of this word, even though it doesn't mean to give birth. Because, and that's why he brings the Targum, to show that even when it means to give birth, what does it really mean to get bigger yourself? And here, when it doesn't mean to give birth, it's still coherent with all the other meanings, because even there it means to get bigger yourself. To be inwardly blessed, like the waters, your own blessing has been increased.
Could it be, I'm just thinking to myself, could it be similar to what he was saying? That you're getting bigger through yourself, through your children, but it's not going to be like through your children in that way. It's going to be through, other. I mean, normally you say it, and it's like you're getting bigger through your children. Maybe, I'm just thinking, maybe it's what he's saying, kind of, that you're getting bigger through your children, but it's also through your grandchildren. It's like not just your children, it's also your grandchildren, like down the line, or it's not.
What's the connection I'm saying? But here we're saying that it has nothing to do with giving. It doesn't
Nothing to do with giving children at all.
Having children at all. Because here, when it refers to Rivka and Yitzchak, it just refers to them becoming rich and famous. That's the point. Is that it's not an unusual usage, because even in the place when it means you give birth, it really means you get bigger. You're getting bigger is actually you're giving birth is actually a part of you.
Getting bigger means rich and famous?
It
Like
could,
more,
in this case, it could, yes.
Like more not known?
More money is basically what he comes down to.
You
Ulam
have money,
l'chora.
you have more kids.
What's that?
You have less money than you have kids.
Ulam l'chora. However, seemingly, Klaus perish zeh einu muchrach. He says this whole idea is not even necessary. Like this whole explanation, you don't even need it. Ki lefarash ufarinu hakavana levlados peros. Because we could explain ufarinu really does mean to have children. And yet, and even so, it could still go on the previous words that it said Hashem is going to make us broad. One of our questions was, since they only had 2 kids, how can he say that all of a sudden we're going to be fruitful when coming as a continuation of Hashem's going to make us broad and great when 2 kids is not really a fulfillment of that bracha? He said, yeah, actually it could be. Because it goes with what Rashi said already in Parshas Vayera, B'nei banim harei kamehem kabanim. Nice, you guys kind of nailed it right there. That grandchildren are also like children. Ve'im kein efshar lomar shakai al b'nei Yaakov shayu shanim shnei masar v'dina. So what does it mean? Nice, you got it. What does it mean that even though there was a blessing to become very broad and they only had 2 children, you could still say you're going to be fruitful. Why? Because grandchildren are called your children as well. And so since Yaakov had 12 children plus Dinah, 13 children, then you could say to Yitzchak, you're going to be very fruitful, because that's pretty darn fruitful. L'chein ma'atik Rashi b'tchilas perushu ufarinu ba'aretz u'mela kosev gam perush v'nifush ba'ara. And that's why Rashi adds in the word ba'aretz, in the land. Remember we said before it was that to do with the land. Right? Why you bring that word? You didn't add anything with the word in the land. You should have just said v'nipush and not nipush ba'ara. Because b'nei Yaakov hari lo nodu ba'aretz gurar v'gam lo ba'aretz Yisrael b'chlal kim b'chutz la'aretz v'mele lo kai u'pirim ba'aretz aleihem. No, so this is a question, not an answer. He says, therefore Rashi brings down at first perusha ufarinu ba'aretz. Even though the reality is, the Bnei Yaakov, they were not born in the land of Gerar where Yitzchak was that time, but rather in Chutz La'aretz, and therefore Uparinu Ba'aretz does not go on them. It doesn't refer to them. What is he saying here?
Meaning it's not them specifically, it's their grandchildren. Right?
No, but how can you say to Yitzchak, you're going to be fruitful in the land, and it goes on Yaakov, when Yaakov was not in that land? The fruitfulness did not come in that land.
Because maybe it's not talking about specific land, it's talking about like your land, meaning your spiritual inheritance type of situation. That's his grandchildren.
I'm just trying to figure out the wording here. Therefore, Rashi brings down at the beginning of his Perush ba'aretz, and therefore he automatically writes ba'ara. Right, so Rashi brings down ufrim ba'aretz, and then his explanation. You know, that's the Hebrew that he brings down, and then also in his own words that he writes on those words that he brings down, he writes the word ara. B'nei Yaakov hari lo noldu ba'aretz. Kim b'chutz la'aretz. U'mele lo kai u'firim ba'aretz aleihem. It's like I feel like he's saying two opposite things in this same sentence. On one hand, he's answering the question that it could be that the word ufarinu does make sense to go on children, because ultimately his grandchildren had a lot of children. But then he says, no, but those grandchildren didn't have the children in that land.
Which land?
The land that Yitzchak was in. So how can you say you're going to be fruitful in the land, despite what you're saying? Okay, you're trying to answer it, but the Rebbe is challenging it. He's saying that how could you say that the blessing ufarinu ba'aretz goes on Yitzchak, referring to Yaakov's children, when they weren't in the Aretz, so they weren't fruitful in that land that he was in. Od yesh l'dayak b'ferush Rashi zeh, lama matik loshen hatargum havi lichtov ketargamo v'sulo k'min hagu m'komos Rabbi v'lo me'dira b'targum pasuk zeh. So, here's another question. Why does Rashi have to bring down the actual words of the Targum? He says, v'nipush va'ara, leave it out. Like Rashi does in so many places, where Rashi oftentimes just says, ketargamo. Rashi just says, look at the Targum, and a person's going to go over and look and see what the words are. Rashi doesn't always have to spell it out and bring down the translation in his own writings. Why here does he do that? And the explanation is, but Targum kan shtei girsos. Oh, so now it gets mamish interesting. He says, when it comes to the Aramaic translation in this verse, there's actually two versions of the text that we have brought down to us. One is V'yav Shinana, and the other one is V'nipush, like we have. And Rashi brings down Lashon HaTargum Lamdenu Shagirsa Nachonihi V'nipush. Oh, so Rashi's bringing down the Lashon of the Targum in order to clarify from the two different versions which one he believes is correct. So he's by bringing it down, he's negating the other one. In other words, even though Rashi's general reason for writing his commentary is not in order to solidify which versions of the Aramaic translation are correct, it's not his reason for writing, but here it really matters in terms of Rashi's explicit purpose for writing, which is to explain the simple meaning of the text. So it serves his purpose of clarifying which of the two versions of the Targum are correct. You understand what he's saying? It was Rashi's job, his explicit job, is not to clarify, previous translations, which one's correct or not. His job, as he says many times, is I'm here to explain the simple meaning of the Torah. But in this case, clarifying which of the two translations is correct aids him in his explanation of the simple meaning of the Torah. How so? V'yav shinana perusho shehu yafish otanu. The word v'yav, if it would have said v'yav shinana, if according to the one translation, it means that he will make us great. Ufarinu, therefore, would mean he will make us great in the land, and refer to Hashem. Hashem will make us great. Whereas v'nipush perushu sha'anu me'atzmenu nipush. Whereas the word nipush means we will become great in the land on our own, not from Hashem. And it refers to Yitzchak and Rivka. In other words, the word ufarinu ba'aretz, therefore, is that we, Yitzchak and Rivka, will become great. Not he will make us great. So that's why Rashi gets involved in clarifying the Targum, because it has a huge difference on what the pshat is.
Rashi says the pshat that he will make us great.
Rashi says B'shad, he will make us great.
Interesting. Why would it be considered we make ourselves great? I guess it's a little more close to that. Like it seems like that, but still, it's not. We make ourselves like nobody makes themselves great. So what do you mean, like?
Wait, can I just before you get to that? Let me just finish. I just now understood the last confusion, right? We went through this whole long process of explaining why the Targum Nipush is correct, because it means that even because we can use that word to mean becoming great, even though it doesn't mean to have children. Why? Because even when it means to have children, ultimately what it really means is you yourself become greater. And that's what the Rabbi went through all these hoops and ladders to explain to us that when Rashi says here v'nipush, okay, it's not a strange translation of the word ufarinu. Even when it means to give birth, it ultimately means to make yourself greater. And that's where it ended. Now the Rebbe comes along and says, now why do we need all that? We could have said like what you guys said, that it means to give birth, right? And why are we going through all these hoops and ladders? It means to give birth. He was talking about his children, his grandchildren. Why do you have to go through this whole nipush and try and say that it really means to make yourself greater, and that making yourself greater is even the intention behind having children is that ultimately you make yourself greater? Just say it like it means everywhere to have kids. And that's why Rashi brings down also the word ba'ara, in the land, to negate that possibility. Because since it says in the land, it means the land of Yitzchak, it can't be going on his children. So that is negated. And that's why, in order to negate that, that's why Rashi brings down the word aretz, when it seemingly doesn't have anything to do with it. He's trying to explain the word ufarinu. Why does he say aretz? That was one of our first questions. In order to show you that this is talking about something that happened to Yitzchak alone, not Yitzchak's children. Because the birth of their children was not in the aretz, and so we have to explain it the way that we did. That nipush means to make yourself greater. You understand that? That's like the missing key.
Didn't you say that Rashi explained that Hashem made us great?
No, so that's the next thing. So the next thing he says is that why does Rashi, there's another question, why does Rashi bring down the actual words of the Targum, right? When he could have just said Ketargamo, like and just said look over there. So that's because Rashi is clarifying between two different explanations of the Targum, and it means something in terms of the Pshat, because there's a big difference in terms of if Hashem is going to make us greater, we're ourselves going to make us great. Now what's the difference there? That's why he brought it in. Now, in terms of what is that difference, now the Rebbe goes into a Hasidic, this is all like Nigla, now the Rebbe goes into mystical answers as to why that's of our concern. But up until now, I'll make sure everyone's totally clear, besides Shalom has a little nap. Shalom, you alright? So, yeah, you understand everything? Yeah? You got it?
Partially. For the most part.
Okay. Listen, the Rebbe's, he's it's complicated, but you can see that. Just what's awesome about it is just how deeply you can look into a simple Rashi, which you just read by, and you see that there's so much complexity of what Rashi was really saying, and why he said it, and why it's different from here, why did he bring down this word, not this word. It's crazy. Yeah.
How deeply the Rabbi can look into some simple Rashi.
Well, that's true, but the fact that the Rebbe takes his time to look into it is because
Sure,
there's truth in there that's just so deep, it goes on forever, that it's like he's giving us this realization that Rashi's writing is Ruach HaKodesh, and every single word of it is perfect. If you didn't, we might have known that in theory, because it's Rashi. But unless someone sits down and takes the time to show you what the Ruach HaKodesh is, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Rabbi, he could do this.
Yeah.
For us.
I was thinking back to the beginning where you were saying things about Adam and Eve having children, and the two things, fruitful and multiply, meaning the same thing. But I think
they don't mean the same thing. One is have one children, the other one says one has many.
Yeah, but I mean, being fruitful could also mean that you have two children.
There, you would think not. That's why you had to bring the extra word, and you have many.
Yeah, but if you say just multiply, then that would also mean that you have many children. So you also use the word fruitful to imply that you have like a sweetness to your multiplication. So you add like a richness, and you add flavor, you add like all this abundance and this legacy, and the quality with which you multiply.
I don't know if that's true. If you didn't have to say fruit, and you just said multiply, like ravu, it could mean it could mean ravu means to become many. It doesn't necessarily mean like we see here in children. You could become many in possessions and things like this. Fruitful means you're giving birth. So first of all, you're giving birth, and then it's like, are you giving one? Or are you giving many? I'm not sure if it works if you just say be multiple.
Yeah.
Because I'm just saying the word in Hebrew. Maybe in English it sounds like okay if you're going to multiply, obviously, but it doesn't really mean that in Hebrew. Revu just means many,
Yeah.
and I don't,
From
it wouldn't really come out in the proper context if you got a commandment become many like revu. It really just means become great, become big, and it might not have anything to do with children. Peru is where you learn it's children, and then since there's only one child, you have to say many children.
And so, if it was that, like the fruitfulness was also in like the way that you had children and the like what you passed it down to your children and this element of it, then also in the element of Isaac, it could also be his enriching himself and increasing the quality of himself and like expanding his like deeper godly soul self and the quality and the legacy that he's able to pass into his children, so that not only his grandchildren but great grandchildren can take the like message and the quality and the legacy that he developed and expanded himself to expand themselves in the future.
It's interesting. Yeah. Listen, in general, I like what you're saying. Just I guess like a word of to think about, which is just important in general, is that you see how the Rebbe's trying to make a new definition of his words. He brings it from this verse and from this verse and this verse, because to just come in and say, oh, fruitful, it means sweet, like for example, or something like that, or fruitful, it's dangerous a little bit, because coming into the Torah just like deciding that it means this is, you can get all kinds of crazy explanations. You can make a new Torah. People came into the Torah and they made a New Testament because they said, oh, you know what I think this means? And there you have to be a little bit careful. That's why when we do it like in the Torah scholarship, you have to do it with everything has to be backed up. In other words, if you show me another place where, I'm not challenging, I'm just throwing this out there as something to think about, where in this context, that's what fruitful meant. Then it's like, okay, you can start to build an argument. You know what I mean? But coming just from like...
It's not necessarily wrong.
Pure, right, it's like you're not necessarily wrong. It's interesting.
Yeah,
that's what I said. But I'm just saying, it's in terms of just as a point to think about how like this whole thing works. It's very... Because here we're like kind of tearing the Torah apart and saying it means this, it means that, it means this. The whole conversation could be taken out of context and say, oh, if you could do that to the Torah, the Rebbe did it, I'll do it. And I think it means this. And like, you make a whole... That you have to be careful with. Because it's the scholarship and awesome understanding of knowing the entire Torah and all the connotations could possibly mean that gives a person sort of the ability and the right, if you will, to bring forth a new explanation. Because translating the Torah and interpreting the Torah can be the most godly and awesome thing there could be, because you're bringing the godliness out that's implicit in the Torah, or it could be the most unholy thing.
So
because you translate it means you basically conceal the true meaning with your translation or my translation, which is kind of how a lot of problems arise. Please don't take this as a criticism, I'm just explaining how the Torah scholarships work. Because if you see what the Rebbe is doing, and even what Rashi's doing, it's all very, very delicate and exactly based on previous meanings and previous understandings and how the Targum says, why does he bring this word? It's like, yeah, anyway. I don't know if that helps.
I'm just curious. You're not saying that we shouldn't think of our own understanding. You're saying we just have to make sure that it backs. I just want to
in other words, if you're going to think of your own understanding,
you think about it, but it's not necessarily true. We should back it up.
You have to back it up, and if you don't back it up, you should be your own first number one critic. In other words, when you yourself are coming into a Torah scholarship and you come up with a novel idea, which is on one hand very great and very encouraged, on the other hand, how novel you're going to be is that your novelty has to really be that something which is already standard and in place and solid as a rock, you're bringing from over here. Since it means this here, then I have legs to stand on that it could mean this here. You just come in and say it means this here, and you have no legs to stand on.
So don't throw away
that's dangerous.
Don't throw away your questions. Write them down, but just
write them down. Keep
it in mind.
You're building
make
something.
Sure they're built on something.
Right. Because if not, it's not a valid argument. It's like making a move in chess. You're like, checkmate. You say, that piece doesn't do that. You can't make checkmate that way. Right? Yeah. All right. So now let's get to the interesting part, so to speak, where he says miyena shel Torah. So all the time when Rabbi goes into some kind of complex situation like that with Rashi, he says, but Rashi really is called the wine of Torah. Remember, the wine is like the secrets. When you drink wine, the secrets come out. So there's a mystical dimension of all this that Rashi was also on top of. Despite the fact of Rashi's brilliance of seeing how this thing all worked out, there's a whole mystical underpinning to the thing. And in this parish of Rashi brings down the word of the Targum Benipush Ba'ara, as we said. Pasik Yeshnam Beisin Yan, which means in the verse there's two things. One is Ki Ata Harchiv Hashem Lanu. One is that now Hashem has made us broad and spacious in the land, which is the Indian of something that comes from above. And the other one, remember, this is going now on why Rashi picked one version of the translation over the other. Not Hashem will make us fruitful, but we will make us great. Remember, that's the one he chose. Because the beginning of the verse says, Hashem will make us broad. It clearly says, now Hashem will make us broad in the land, from above. But Nipush, as we just learned, means that the person himself will make himself great. It's not V'yiv Shanina, which means Hashem will do it from above. It's we will make ourselves great from below. So Rashi's bringing this in by negating the other translation because it has to do with this whole mystical dimension where there's something going on from above to below and there's something going on from below to above. And Rashi wants to indicate that in here. It's amazing. And Rashi, what is he telling us? That the purpose of Hashem making you broad from above is that v'nipush ba'ara, is that you, the person himself, should serve and take that blessing from above and make yourself great with it. In other words, don't just rely on the blessing from above, that Hashem is going to make us broad from above and He's going to make us great. No, He makes you broad from above, so now you make yourself great. The person should serve, that the purpose of Hashem creating the world, which is basically Hashem harchiv lanu, Hashem made all this manifest amazingness, is for the purpose that the person should stress himself out, so to speak, yageh v'yavod b'zeh. He should take the blessing that came of his life and the creation and work with it. As it says, Adam la'amul yula, the person is created to serve and to toil. And what is that service supposed to look like? That's why it brings v'nipush ba'ara, that the person should serve ima olam. You make yourself great ba'ara, in the earth, with the world. You serve with the world, vinyanav, and all of the things that are in it. Ach megila darga sha'adam kiviyachol mosif v'nipush al habriya, to the point that the person works so hard with the creation that it is as though he adds to the creation. Nipush ba'ara, therefore, can be read in the way that, what does it mean? Not that we will be increased in the land, but we ourselves will increase the land. The land that Hashem made, we're going to make it bigger. Because Hashem gave us this bracha, we're going to take the bracha and multiply it and make the earth greater than it was when He gave it to us. Through our own efforts. We're going to make it even bigger than Hashem made. Meaning what? You're going to reveal the godliness through the Torah and mitzvahs, even in a place which, on the side standpoint of the creation itself, there is no godliness there. So God made the world. It's a gradation. Some places are godly, some places are not godly. Just a little throughout to eter there. And the truth is that in the places that God made, which don't appear godly, there's still creations of God. It's just that there's a lacking of revelation of God in that place. This is where man can come in and add to the earth, as it were. Through Torah mitzvahs, we can bring the godliness out of a place where Hashem made it, where it doesn't look like there's godliness.
Make it even more godly.
Reveal that it is godly. Which means we become a partner with Hashem in the act of creation. And what's more than this is the sages said, just like Hashem creates worlds, so too your fathers created worlds. The Avos created worlds. You can create worlds. In other words, it's like being part of the Creator, because you bring revelation of God into a place where it was not. However, there's place to make a claim. How is it possible, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and He created with its certain boundaries and limitations, how can a man come along, or even an angel, a created being, and add to this? This too is indicated in the beginning of our verse. He says, Ki ata harchiv Hashem lanu. It says, now Hashem will make us more expanded. Hainu shegam hakoch al zeh sheyuchol ha'adam lanu larchiv losif ba'abriya ba'ma HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even this power that we have, this power to make Hashem's creation greater, it also comes from Hashem. In other words, you're right, you would say, where does a created being get that power? But the beginning of the verse tells us, He endowed us with that power. That's what it says, Hirchiv Hashem lanu. That it says, it doesn't just say Hashem will make, the simple meaning is Hashem will make us great. But what it really means is Hashem will make us so great that we can improve upon His creation. He increased and put into the Jewish people a power which is above limitation. And therefore, that's what it means, Hirchiv lanu. He made us expanded. So that it's within our power, and therefore since it's in our power, it's obviously our job to negate the boundaries of the world and to expand it. That which seems like a place which godliness cannot get into, it's locked up. We have been given supernatural powers, and therefore a acharayis, which means a responsibility to expand its boundaries of godliness. And therefore spiritually and automatically, physically, since everything physical is an outcome of the spiritual, therefore spiritually, automatically, physically, ki mosifim bracha v'nasna aretz givula. That's what we add to the blessing that the earth will give its bounty. And Eretz HaKodesh tzvi shemakam hagashmi pashet. And that's why the land of Israel is called a deer. We call it Eretz Tzvi. Why? Because it says a deer skin, when you take it off the deer, when you strip the deer of its skin, and you look at the skin, you can't get it back on the deer. It doesn't fit on there. It's like a weird thing that the animal, really, the skin is too small for the animal. But what? The deer has this quality of stretching the skin to a point past its own actual natural boundary. And so Eretz Yisrael is called that. People looked at Eretz Yisrael when we were first going to give the Jews this land in like the Balfour Declaration, all these types of things. They said, oh, this land's going to be able to fit maximum like 2 million people. They scouted it out. And now it's already 6 million and 12 million. The land can expand. As many people you want to put in it, the land can hold. It's almost a miraculous land. Literally. Even nowadays, I'm telling you, it's not a joke. This land has this quality. You know what the Rabbi likens it to? When the Jewish people were going in the desert, it says their clothes grew on them. Yeah. For 40 years they were going in the desert, their clothes. So in other words, you were a child, all of a sudden you were 40 years old, you had the same clothes, they grew on you. That's what Eretz Yisrael is like. It grows with us. It's not a normal place. It's the Holy Land. Yeah.
It wasn't because they were hungry.
Who was hungry?
The people in the desert for 40 years.
No, they weren't hungry. They were eating manna from heaven every day, and they had the well of Miriam. We were not starving in the desert.
Their souls weren't hungry. The manna from heaven was filling their soul and filling them with energy, but their physical bodies.
So you're saying if you're 4 years old, because you're hungry, your clothes will still fit you when you're 40?
I think
is that what you mean?
4-year-olds probably was small relative to the number of 18 to 80-year-olds.
No, but the point that their clothes grew with them was referring specifically to the children. They didn't have clothes. And the idea is that just like there was a miraculous bread that came from heaven and a pillar of fire that went down and took them through the night, and a pillar of cloud by day, and a miraculous well that moved along with them. The well came from the ground and it moved with them everywhere they went. And there's Moses was mamish a miracle worker in splitting the sea. All these miracles, one of such miracles was that their clothes grew on them. It was not a natural thing. And it was not because of just, the Torah is not there trying to tell us that there was some kind of a, convenience aspect. They didn't need to buy new clothes. It was telling us that there was one of the miracles of the desert, and there were many, was that their clothes miraculously expanded with them. That's the point. And that's why the Rabbi brings that as an analogy to Eretz Yisrael. Even nowadays, we have that same miracle. Because no matter how many people you're going to put into this land, the land, like a garment, can grow infinitely larger. That's what it means. I hear what you're saying. You can always look at the Torah. Some people want to look at the Torah and say that they realized that there was some kind of a natural weather disturbance, and the sea split. It was just mamish an act of nature. They happened to be standing there in some kind of a tsunami or a hurricane, and the people walk. People are trying to explain away the miracles of the Torah, in all eras and stuff. Even the Torah accounts for that, because the Torah says at that time all the seas in the world split. Not just the sea that we crossed. Even a cup of water split. It was Hashem made a miracle that the entire waters of the world split. And yet He made one water one body of water not split. Why did he do that? Because someone wants to come along and say that this was a natural occurrence. Imagine that all the waters in the world split because the Jewish people had to cross this little sea to get away from our enemies and be redeemed by Moses, who just brought 10 plagues. It was such an obvious miracle. And yet there's still people who were trying to say, listen, it was just a natural occurrence. I don't know what happened. It was a weird act of God in a sense, but it wasn't for the Jewish people. All the waters in the world split. So in order to negate that, Hashem left one of the waters unsplit. This is a midrash. It says,
Interesting how.
all I'm trying to say is that it's been an age-long conversation of, so to speak, trying to make that these miracles were some kind of metaphorical thing or some kind of scientific thing, but the reality is they were just outright miracles from God. And this one in particular is indicative of how Eretz Yisrael also grows with us. Okay, so the point is, we grow and we get bigger to the point of v'nipush ba'ara. We even make the earth bigger. In other words, we take the blessing of Hashem and we increase the boundary of the earth through the supernatural blessing that He gave us to bring godliness to a place of finiteness. And this is the point: is the earth is finite. What are you talking about? You're going to increase the boundaries of a land? It's ridiculous. A land has boundaries. You live in it. Make many houses you want. Make skyscrapers if you want, but you're not going to make the land bigger. So He says we were given a supernatural power from God. That's what it means. B'nipush ba'ara. You can increase the land, right? And this is what He's saying: is that it's not normal. It's not natural. It's something supernatural that this verse is telling us. How do we get such a power? Hirchiv lanu, harchiv Hashem lanu. Hashem gave us this power. Okay. 2 more minutes. We got to run. Shlomo's bunking in for the night, so we're good. All right, maybe we'll hold here. Anyway.
It's interesting that only Yisro heard. You know?
Only Yisro?
But Yishma Yisro.
Doesn't say only he. Everybody heard.
Yeah, the parsha, but so why was he the only one that came to convert? If you were drinking, as you were a mitzvah, let's say, back in the day, you're drinking tea all of a sudden and then it splits in your cup.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what the heck is this, you know? And then